Hello, my name is Muhi Khwaja at American Muslim Community Foundation. Today on the Muslim Philanthropy podcast, we have with us Andrew Keeler, who is the Associate Director of Corporate and Foundation Relations at Indiana University. Welcome to the show, Andrew.
Hi, thanks for having me, Muhi.
Of course. We've crossed paths through Indiana University, through Association of Fundraising Professionals, at their conferences, which I miss sorely, and just have been in touch through the fundraising school, and I received my certificate in fundraising management, and every step of the way you've kind of been there. In your role, I think you've been also very community facing, which is really cool, and been able to meet you and a lot of your colleagues that way. So thank you for all the work that you do at IU.
Great. Yeah, no, it's a privilege to work there, and you just touched on some of the great things we do. So always happy to talk about it. It's very easy to talk about.
Yeah, for sure. So tell us a little bit more about yourself. Did you grow up in Indiana as well, or where did you grow up?
So yeah, I'm originally from. I was born in Lake Charles, Louisiana. I was raised there for a few years, and then ended up in Louisville, Kentucky area, Southern Indiana. And then I had the privilege of getting my undergraduate degree at Indiana University. I majored in English and political science. I wanted to be a writer, a travel writer. I was like, people pay you to travel and write about it. That sounds, I could do that. It turns out it's not that easy to get that job once you graduate. So I ended up working teaching English as a second language in Louisville, Kentucky after graduating, and then did that for a couple of years. And then the financial crisis happened in the Great Recession. So I ended up going back to school, got my master's at the School of Public and Environmental Affairs at Indiana University. I went to that program because as I was volunteering, I didn't have enough money for translation books, materials, dictionaries, videos, those kind of things. And I was just kind of disappointed. I would go to my boss and like, can I have more materials or funds for things? He's like, it's just not in the grant. And I was like, well, I'm not very good at teaching. I learned a lot more than my students did, but I felt like I could probably do the grant writing. I was, majored in English. I could probably do that. So I went back to school to kind of focus on that. While in school, I was very fortunate to travel abroad. I did a semester abroad in Mombasa in Kenya on the Swahili coast, and had a great time there. Really kind of opened my eyes and experiences. After graduating, I ended up moving to New York. Got a job out there. Lived out there for a few years, and in the New York, New Jersey, Connecticut tri-state area. And then, I had an opportunity to move back closer to the Midwest, but not immediately next to my family, thankfully. A couple hours away, so nobody's stopping by unannounced, but I could be there a lot quicker. And I've really enjoyed it so far. Indianapolis is a great city, and I've really appreciated my time at the university. I've been there about, I think, 6 years, coming up 6 years later this year. So all at the IU Lilly Family School of Philanthropy. And that's a little bit about me. I have an English bulldog. My partner and I also have a cat. She's a financial advisor, so we get to nerd out on the tax policies of giving and the various giving methods. So that's a lot of fun to do as well. And that's kind of it about me. Broadly, I'm the first generation college graduate. My dad was a mechanic, and my mom was an statistical administrative assistant for the U.S. Census Bureau. And so we've had, a lot of um, experiences working with different sectors: government sector, corporate sector, and the nonprofit sector.
Right on. Thank you for sharing. For the what brought you to Indiana University in terms of like wanting, obviously you went to undergrad there and just kind of having that experience and then your master's program, but what was it about the role that you really wanted to, stay at Indiana University and be there?
Yeah, so after I graduated with my master's program, I got a job in New York, as I mentioned earlier, working for a legal services nonprofit. So this organization provided free legal services to other nonprofits. We had volunteer attorneys from corporations, in-house counsel, and some law firms kind of do pro bono work for nonprofits. And it was there that I realized Um, a lot of nonprofits could use a lot of expertise and infrastructure help. In particular, I had an executive director at the time. I was fundraising, and he thought, well, we should ask the corporations for more money than we are. But I'd read this research study called Giving USA that came out of Indiana University, and I just happened to read it about the time. I had no idea about it actually when I was studying there, and it said that most giving comes from individuals, something like three quarters, 70%, something like that, comes from individuals. And I told him, I was like, well, I think if you want to get more funding, you should focus on the individual attorneys, not so much their firms or their companies, because that's where a majority of philanthropy is. And he was like, well, that doesn't make sense. I always hear about corporate giving in the news. I don't hear about individual giving. And so I broke out the research and I was like, yeah, this is the kind of stuff we're helping nonprofits with legal services, but there are other organizations helping us at the same time. And so doing that, I really enjoyed the work and kind of the experience of working in New York and traveling to a lot of corporations and law firms. But we were looking to move back to the Midwest. I think part of it was just being homesick and missing a home. I think another part was I wanted to stay at an organization that I thought could have a deep impact across the sector. Um, I'm very selfish when it comes to philanthropy. I love every type of organization, like environment, arts, um, poverty alleviation, international, like whatever it is, I like it, and I want to devote time and energy, and I just can't pick and choose. I would feel bad if I picked one over the other, and I thought this was a great opportunity to be able to impact multiple types of organizations. And then I had a friend in the research department at the school that I graduated with in my master's program. He let me know about this opportunity, and she had known that we were looking to move back. And the timing just worked out, and I applied and had a long interview process. Took a couple months traveling back and forth, but everything worked out in the end. And I've been here about 6 years, so really happy that I got the opportunity.
Yeah, it's that, almost natural alignment, which is really cool.
Yeah, yeah. I had no idea when I was graduating that I would come back to Indiana, or that I would, I was really wanted to travel, love traveling. I was like, I'm going to travel and leave the state and never come back. And then a few years later, I was like, no, okay. I like the cost of living is a big draw as well. And
Sure.
Indianapolis has a great airport where you can travel. I don't have to spend 5 hours at LaGuardia waiting for my flight. So
True. You mentioned the Giving USA report, and it's great that Indiana University helps publish that. Can you tell people a little bit more about Giving USA?
yeah, so the Giving USA is the Indiana University Lilly Family School of Philanthropy's kind of signature research project. And so it's the GDP of philanthropy, is what to say. So it counts all philanthropy in the United States. It's published every year. It's been published for 50 some odd years, and we do the research. It's scholarly research. It's academic. It's very high quality, and it's supported by the Giving Institute, which is kind of a consortium of consulting firms and other for-profit philanthropic actors who want to have a baseline of data and knowledge for the field and be able to share it. And they use it wonderfully for client engagement, content creation for their work. Um, and they support the research, and we've done it every year. And so we have a top line number on philanthropy. We look at subsectors: education, religion, arts, the environment, down the list: human services, healthcare. And it's just been a great resource. We also divide giving up by individuals, foundations, corporations. And I think we're pretty well known for it. We have other research as well, global philanthropy indices, where we're trying to adapt Giving USA globally and do it for every country. And not us do it, but kind of to train the people in the country to kind of build their research infrastructure to be able to do it. But every country is different on data, what they have available data, the quality of data, what tax records they have, and different culture and socioeconomic factors that affect philanthropy as well. And so that's been kind of a fun research project to be a part of as well. We've started in about 70 countries, and we're just keep working at it and working at it. And every couple of years, the global philanthropy indices research we put out as well that tries to build Giving USA kind of globally.
It's really great. And Indiana University has several institutes. There's the Lake Institute on Faith and Giving. There's the Women's Philanthropy Institute, and more recently, the Muslim Philanthropy Initiative. So, what is it that Indiana University is so interested in these separate subsectors of philanthropy? And, you know, why is Indiana University known as like the place to be for philanthropy?
Yeah, so I just give a little history. So the School of Philanthropy has been around for over 30 years. It started as a center on philanthropy at Indiana University, and it had its origins actually out in San Francisco with the fundraising school. So the fundraising school is our professional development arm where we teach fundraisers kind of best practices. A lot of fundraising courses are just consultants who like this worked for me 20 years ago when I worked, and they teach them, but it's not really rooted in research or um, curriculum. And so we kind of developed that and make sure it's scholarly and high quality. So in 1987, they wanted to put the fundraising school and really develop this research around it and the quality. So they moved it into an academic center, Indiana University. That was done with support of Lilly Endowment and a few other foundations. So we were started as a center on philanthropy then in 1987, and we've grown since. As you know, we added a bachelor's, a master's, a PhD program. We have a few hundred students now. We have an online master's, which is completely virtual. And I think we've had that for over a decade, and that's been great because we were able to hit the ground running when it came to the pandemic and adapt pretty quickly. So we had worked on this some time before, and growing every year. So we added our Women's Philanthropy Institute. Men and women give differently for different reasons, different causes. We really wanted to do the research on that as to how that looks and what it is. For example, you see a rise in giving circles among women that you don't see among men. It's very much more collaborative, community-based, a lot more social giving. And so the research there is funded by mostly by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Melinda Gates in particular has a keen interest on increasing giving and increasing giving by women and looking at how men and women give differently and the impact that they can have. We also have our fundraising school, which I mentioned, our professional development arm. We teach on every continent outside of Antarctica. We keep joking that we're going to try to find a way to teach up there so we can just say all of them, but it hasn't happened yet.
Education and tourism mix.
Yeah, right. We teach about 8,000 students a year or professionals a year in our courses on major giving, planned giving, giving 101, high net worth giving. It runs the gamut. Digital fundraising is a new one as well. And so we teach those courses around the country, and those are more and more increasingly virtual and available online as well. And then we have our Lake Institute on Faith and Giving. And so Giving USA research shows that giving to religion, narrowly defined, just kind of religious institutions, is about 30% of all giving, about $130 billion. And it's the largest recipient of giving. And that's just narrowly defined. So when you include maybe educational institutions that are counted as education, but really like Catholic high schools, those kind of things, giving by religion, if you kind of expand the definition, is maybe half of all giving, if not more. And so religion is a big part of giving. And so our Lake Institute on Faith and Philanthropy really looks at that, how faith informs philanthropy. And it looks at the finances of religious institutions, how they're approaching philanthropy. And I like to say you don't mix higher education, public university higher education, religion, and money, and shake them all up. Those three things don't go together very often. So it's a one-of-a-kind institution that does great research, and they also do training. So they have an executive certificate in religious fundraising and a certificate in creating generous congregations. It was a mouthful. CCCG is easier. Just Google that. You'll find it.
Nice.
Have our Muslim Philanthropy Initiative, which is within that Lake Institute, that looks at increasingly looking at the Muslim giving impact that they have across the country and the world. Part of that is an academic journal and the Community Collaboration Initiative and some other initiatives as well. And then we also have our Mays Family Institute on Diverse Philanthropy that looks at giving by communities of color. So they're historically underrepresented groups have not been given their due in philanthropy. And a lot of times formal philanthropy has shut them out. And so they have to give informally. So what does that look like? And are we counting it? How do you count it? And how are we measuring and talking about that philanthropy? And we're doing research and training on that. And that's been very well received. And I think has been to have an impartial academic voice in the field is critically important in that regard. The university, the Indiana University Lilly Family School of Philanthropy as a whole, our faculty, we have over 20 faculty members from diverse perspectives. We have historians, economists, social scientists. We actually just hired a brand new faculty member to focus on the environment and philanthropy. She's really interested in marine conservation in Southeast Asia and the role philanthropy plays in that. And so we have this kind of very diverse faculty. It really makes it multidisciplinary. They collaborate a lot, they argue a lot, which is great. And so it's really unique. And I think you have a lot of other centers on philanthropy across the country in different schools or states, or they're often in business schools or public policy schools. But they may have one or two faculty members who lead the center or are focused on philanthropy, where we have, um, and when that faculty members retire, what happens next? Oftentimes they don't last. So we're, as the world's first school of philanthropy, we're here for the long run, and we're not based on one or two faculty members or just a dozen students. And so that makes us unique in that regard, is the longevity, I think. Yeah, I think it's a great asset for the field. And I would add, I think another advantage of it is actually being based in Indiana. I don't think people think about that very often, but we have community foundations in every county in this state, which is pretty rare. Only two states in the country have that. The other is Michigan. And because we have this kind of community philanthropy, we also have one of the top five largest foundations in the country in Lilly Endowment. And then we have a lot of individual donors. We have Eli Lilly and Company, a lot of other companies as well. Sports and philanthropy are big in Indiana. So I think it's a really unique environment that was able to have community foundations, individual donors, and corporate donors all in one place, and large institutional supporters who've been around for a long time. They said I think the school of philanthropy had only been founded in one of two states, either Indiana or Michigan. And so you're not going to find this kind of assets, I think, on the coast. At least you haven't yet.
Yeah, and speaking of which, when I was at the University of Michigan, I participated in a development summer internship program, which was modeled after Indiana University. So it took undergrad students and showcased how the university fundraised. And that's really how I learned about Association of Fundraising Professionals, Indiana University. And I back then in like 2009, I told myself like I want to be engaged with these institutions and participate. And fast forward all these years, now luckily I've been able to teach with and take classes and get certifications. And it was really because of that internship at the University of Michigan, which again, I feel like with philanthropy, all roads lead to Indiana University. Yeah. Well, I think this is a good opportunity to jump into a year of learning and the program that is going to be taking place on Thursday, February 18th. It's the first of several conversations around Muslim engagement and philanthropy, connecting with mainstream philanthropic institutions, showcasing who American Muslims are and the work that is being done by Muslim-led institutions. So can you tell us a little bit more about Indiana University's involvement with A Year of Learning?
Yeah, so we are kind of a strong supporter of the Community Collaboration Initiative, which is under our Muslim Philanthropy Initiative that has a consortium of 25 Muslim American nonprofit organizations that are collaborating and working together to kind of deepen their impact. And it's part of the school's mission to really expand the definition of philanthropy and to make sure it's inclusive. And I think this aligns nicely with that. And we have the research, the background, the academic expertise, and kind of the wherewithal, I think, to really showcase how these organizations are working, how they're working effectively, and share that more broadly with the field. The Learning Lots Initiative is a great opportunity to share with funders, community leaders, and others about the impact that the Muslim American nonprofit sector is having. And I think you see a lot of other maybe religious institutions or religious groups coming together, like Jewish federations are very big, and others, but you don't see that so much in the Muslim American community, I think, because after 9/11, there was some hesitation maybe to come together and do that broad for fear of political pushback or something. And so it's been really interesting to see how it's kind of organically come together and how it's changing the field and driving impact. I think if you want to affect organizations on the ground in major metropolitan areas in the United States, you have to know the Muslim American nonprofit sector and the organizations working there. And I think they don't get enough attention. Hopefully, this is part of showing the kind of impact they have, how they work together, and kind of opening the door behind the scenes so funders, community leaders, and others can kind of start relationship building and figuring out how they can work together to really kind of achieve their mission and to make these communities stronger.
Yeah, and you and I have both been involved in the development committee for this initiative. What are some of the things that you're looking forward to? Inviting your network, your peers, other people who are involved. Why are you excited about this event?
Yeah, I'm excited. Well, a little sneak peek, we've seen the RSVP list, and it's a great list. So there are so many great people there. And I'm just excited to hear all these bright minds come together and really talk about what works, what doesn't work, why things may be different, what challenges exist and opportunities. And you just don't get these kind of, I think, this kind of thought leadership all in the room at the same time. And I really appreciate the event that we have planned um, because there's time for reflection, time for coming together. It's not just being spoken to, but it's really a deeper engagement. As I said, it's about relationships. And as a fundraiser, I love relationships. So I'm thrilled that that was kind of the focus from the very beginning. And I think I'm really excited just to see these diverse minds come together and really show like what's working, what's not working, particularly in a city nearby, Chicago, which is close to my heart. I love Chicago. I go every chance I can get. And it's like a great case study. And Chicago is that kind of strong Midwestern city that if it could work there, I think it can work anywhere. And so to see what these organizations are doing, the impact they're having, and to really learn how you can better communities like Indianapolis that maybe struggle with reaching their most vulnerable populations at time or reaching communities that aren't Christian. And so I think it's vitally important for a strong philanthropic sector and a strong country and a strong community that we do this and we do this intentionally with time for reflection and time for a dialogue. And I'm just very excited about that opportunity because you don't see that very often.
Yeah, I think you explained some of the intersectionality around it really well. And philanthropy aside, like Chicago is probably one of my favorite cities as well. Growing up in Detroit area, I would make day trips just to visit the Cheesecake Factory. So there's a very fond connection there, and at least a dozen trips throughout college where I would just play hooky and drive out, which
Oh
was
yeah, the
always
same.
fun.
I
Yeah,
would drive up just for the pizza, just for a deep dish. I've never had an
for
authentic
sure.
deep dish pizza, so like I'll get in the car and drive 5 hours and see what it's about, and go to a White Sox game or a Cubs game or see what the Bulls are doing. I grew up in the '90s, so I always think of Chicago basketball as like a basketball town as well. So even though they're not very good right now, the Pacers are better, by the way. Just a little aside. We don't get to say that very often, I think, so I'm going to
I,
take my time for that.
I can at least say the Warriors because I've been living here for the last 8 years. So, we've had a pretty good run.
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
it's a fun city, um, and it's a great place. But like every place has its challenges, and I think um, I'm just yeah, I'm excited to see kind of the results and what comes to fruition out of these conversations and these meetings, and see what collaboration can actually occur, and hopefully that funders can deepen their impact and their mission, and learn more about and scope their work for the future. Because this isn't just the learning launching event for one day, right? So it's about years down the road, and how are we going to keep this conversation going and then expand kind of this community that we have. And I think the School of Philanthropy is very excited about that kind of potential of expanding philanthropy and expanding the scope, expanding our understanding of it. And then to have people collaborate and talk to one another is it's always thrilling to see and exciting. And a lot of funders always are promoting collaboration. They think nonprofits maybe should collaborate more. You hear that push a lot. And this is an actual moment where it's happening. And so take note. And I hope they, really pay attention to how collaboration works. And it's not always perfect. It can be messy. Um, but you get to see it all. And that's going to be a very fun conversation.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the main reasons why American Muslim Community Foundation was excited to be invited and be part of this conversation. We truly believe in the impact that philanthropy can have. And when people come together, learn with one another, build those relationships, that's when we've seen those momentous gifts or gifts come to fruition that can really lead to impact. And we're all about collective philanthropy. I know earlier you were talking about the Women's Philanthropy Initiative and giving circles. AMCF is starting a women's giving circle that is national, virtual. Bringing women across the country together to give to common causes that they want to support. And we're also going to be replicating that with the Interfaith Giving Circle, Confronting Hate. So those are two new Giving Circle initiatives that AMCF is launching in 2021. And we hope to, be part of the conversation around Muslim philanthropy, engaging more mainstream philanthropy with Muslim-led institutions. And we're also very excited to see the potential learnings and outcomes from this initiative. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's a very exciting development. Congratulations. And I think it has like great potential just to when people come together to give together, not only can you kind of deepen the impact, but you can have a stronger narrative and you can get the word out about the work that you're doing. And that invites others to join in. And that invites nonprofit clientele to know the services that are available. And I think it's just strongly important to get that kind of narrative out there and to have this broad dissemination network where you can share the stories and the impact that you're having. And that's really exciting development. So I'm excited to see what you guys do and accomplish.
Thank you. Well, everybody should tune in on Thursday, February 18th to learn more about a year of learning. You can find out more at yearoflearning.com, .org, yearoflearning.uic.edu. There's a few ways to get there. We hope you RSVP, check it out. And Andrew, thank you so much for joining.
Not a problem. Thank you for having me, Muhid. I look forward to seeing you on Thursday at the Year of Learning.
Likewise.